Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vincent Opara. I'm the head of disaster risk reduction and management at the African Union. They will proceed. I would like to announce that we have simultaneous and French. If you look at the bottom corner of your screen, you will see interpretation. You can select the language of your choice, whether it's English or French. Today's webinar, we're going to be looking at a topic on accelerating investment for inclusive holistic agricultural risk management in Africa. Welcome everybody to this meeting. On behalf of myself and the management of AUDA-NEPAD, our CEO, Madam Bekele Thomas, as well as our director, Mrs. Estherine Bisinge Fotabong. We thank you for your time, for joining us in this meeting. The first slide we're going to be looking at. So we want to look at exactly why we are here today, in terms of what is the problem we're trying to address. As everyone knows, agriculture is the mainstay of the Africa's economy. However, this very important sector in the continent face vulnerability in terms of price volatility, in terms of financial uncertainties, and global geopolitical tension. As you know, most of the grains and seed that we use in the sector comes from the Black Sea, which is now a very contentious area. And again, the ever-present climate risk from climate change, and now we, from time to time, witness El Nino, and at the same time, La Nino also coming into the equation. So two opposing events that are clashing, and the outcome has been that in Africa, we experience both flood, dry weather conditions, and this has impact on loss of income and the livelihood of especially the smallholder farmers who do not have the mechanism and the facilities, be it to put in a very proper irrigation system or to put on facilities that will drain the water farm. And on the human security point of view, we're also experiencing food and nutrition insecurity. As you know, at least 1 in 5 Africans goes to bed hungry. And at the same time, we have over 140 million people that face this food insecurity crisis. However, you also have the fact that a lot of players and actors in the continent are doing their best to mitigate those risks and uncertainties. At the African Union Development Agency, we have a program called the Agriculture and Food Insecurity Risk Management. And our major partners are joined together in a multi-donor platform for agricultural risk management. So you will get to hear more about these interventions, both AFEM and the PARM, as well as what the private sectors and the regional economic communities are doing to mitigate all of this risk. So the objective of today's webinar, which is on the next slide, is to share experience and best practices from various initiatives contributing to agricultural risk management in Africa. And the second will be to reflect on how best to coordinate our efforts in terms of institutional and also partnerships, so that we can do better in agricultural risk management in the continent. And lastly, we're going to be discussing and also identify resources and windows that could help us scale up the initiative among member countries. So at the end of the day, we expect that all participants would have increased their awareness and knowledge of the approaches and opportunities for effective agricultural risk management in the continent. And similarly, we could, at the end of the day, identify synergies and complementarity within the initiatives. And also, we think by the end of the day, participants would have identified some funding and investment opportunities in the area. So today with me is going to be hearing from panel members as well as the audience, who will also interject at any point in time during the question and answer session. So having said that, may I have the honor to introduce our panel members for the sake of time, starting with Jean-Claude Biodegeza, the technical specialist at the PARM Secretariat, following by my colleague, Zodidi Sylvestre, who is a program officer in the Agriculture, Food Insecurity Risk Management. From the gender point of view, we have our expert, Johanna Simao, and from the COMESA, which is representative from the Regional Economic Community, we have Ms. Providence Mafubi, who is also a director at COMESA. She also chairs the PARM Advisory Committee. And we also have in our midst Aduarim Lugozuri, the CEO of Wazuri Ghana Limited. Following this introduction, we're going to be having some list of questions for the panelists. First panelist on the list is Mr. Jean-Claude. If you could bring up the slide, or maybe I can, well, ask the question. Claude, we would like to know from you, what is PARM all about? And what are the objectives of this platform? And also in terms of briefly, since inception of PARM, what are some of your achievements and success stories in the countries in which this project has been implemented? Over to you, Mr. Claude.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Vincent, for giving me the floor. And I'm very glad to be part of this webinar. So the platform for agricultural risk management, the acronym PARM, so is a global partnership and a multi-donor initiative that was established in 2013. So this initiative was a response to the spike in the global food price that took place in 2006, and then 2 years later, 2008 and 2011, as well as the recurrent droughts, floods, and the pests and the diseases that we are observing in many parts of the country, in many parts of the developing world, which is amplified by the effect of climate change. So those unpredictable phenomena, what we can call a risk in the technical jargon, worsen the vulnerability of food security and the jeopardize the investments that have been put and they continue to be put in the agri-food sector in developing countries. So as a result of those unpredictable phenomena, so agricultural risk management became a critical topic in the discussion of the global in the global development discussions, particularly the G20 agriculture ministers, which led to the creation of PARM in 2013. So the objective of PARM is to strengthen the agricultural risk management in developing countries in a holistic and demand-driven manner. So I will come back later to this holistic word, which is a key in the value proposition of PARM. So this has achieved by supporting partner countries in making agricultural risk management an institutional component of agriculture policy. So the ultimate expected outcome of PARM effort is the integration of agriculture risk management instruments and approach into public policies, private sector practice, and agriculture investment program. So the PARM technical assistance that we provide in the country where we intervene aim to integrate agricultural risk management into the government policy and the program, which starts by analyzing holistically the agricultural risk that may threaten poverty and the food security levels. So when we talk about a holistic approach of PARM, is based on the idea that the risks are diverse and they correlated, and the stakeholders must assess all the risk, the transmission across the supply chain to avoid to focus on only a single source of risk. So, those kind of risks are systemic, which means that they affect significant population groups in the region, and the government is typically the main responsible stakeholders accountable for implementing appropriate tools and creating an enabling environment. So this is why PARM primarily work with the government, and our strategic partnership with AUDA-NEPAD is a very relevant and is a very catalytic in supporting to achieve integration of agricultural risk management into in Africa into country development program. So what PARM have achieved since its inception. So from the appointment of the secretariat started to be operational in September 2014 up to now. So PARM participatory agricultural risk engagement process has been successfully implemented in 12 sub-Saharan African countries: Burundi, Cape Verde, Cameroon, Ethiopia, Ghana, Liberia, Madagascar, Niger, Senegal, Tunisia, Uganda, and Zambia. So the PARM process has resulted in the identification, quantification, prioritization of the major risk that the agriculture sector is facing in those countries, and we generated evidence to improve perception of risk in those countries. And it has led also a package of agricultural risk management tools for investments in line with government's priorities. So in some of those countries, PARM has gone a step further to design development projects that are informed by agricultural risk assessments, evidence, and documentation generated by those studies. And we support government to mobilize and implement the project that we have designed. Over to you, Vincent. I hope I have tried to respond to some of the question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Claude. We'll come back to you with follow-up question. Meanwhile, we would like to hear from Ms. Zodidi. Want to know from you, what is the AUDA-NEPAD Agriculture and Food Security Risk Management Project all about? What have you achieved since the project was launched? Over to you, Ms. Odili.
Thank you very much, Vincent, for giving me the floor and also the opportunity to speak about the AUDA-NEPAD Agriculture and Food Insecurity Risk Management Project. So basically, as you correctly mentioned in your introduction, and Jean-Claude has also emphasized, agriculture is vulnerable to a variety of risks. You both mentioned climate risk, volatility in prices, financial uncertainties, pandemics, conflicts, and the likes. So basically, the Agriculture and Food Insecurity Risk Management Project has been implemented since 2011 with the aim of supporting regional economic communities, our RECs, AU member states, including our vulnerable groups, smallholder producers, to basically integrate agriculture risk management tools and policy instruments into their development and investment plans. So in simple terms, the AFM project, that's the abbreviation that we use for agriculture and food insecurity risk management. The AFM project aims to support member states in putting in place, various measures that will support effective management of risks, strengthen their resilience of agriculture, but not only from the production perspective, but across the entire agri-food systems, and also to ensure that smallholder farmers, women, youth, and other vulnerable groups who are most prone and most impacted, by these risks and crises are able to address these factors effectively and ultimately move away, from adopting negative coping mechanisms, which we have seen really erode their asset base and their livelihoods. So the project itself contributes to the achievement of Commitment 5 of the Malabo Declaration on the Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program, CAADP, which was to enhance the resilience of livelihoods and production systems to climate variability and other related risks, and also contributes to Goal 5 and 7 of Agenda 2063, which focus on achieving modern agriculture, increased productivity and production, as well as environmentally sustainable and climate resilient economies and communities. So while we contribute, we support member states, RECs, to achieving, towards achieving the goals that I mentioned, the overall long-term vision of the project is really to instill a paradigm shift, from crisis response, disaster response, towards more effective management of risk. So this is through, anticipatory actions and also deliberate actions to prepare, for these risks and crises. And ultimately, we hope to strengthen the resilience of agriculture and agri-food systems in Africa. So to answer your question, in partnership with PARM, we have been, AUDA-NEPAD through the FM project has been able to, provide technical support in integrating agriculture and food insecurity risk management into national agricultural policies and extension services of 8 African countries. We have also provided technical support in conducting risk assessment studies, review and prioritization of the risk. And I think Jean-Claude mentioned a few, in the past, we've seen a lot of, countries affected by crop pests and diseases, climate, erratic rainfall, droughts, floods, post-harvest losses, and the likes. So we have also supported the assessment and identification of effective tools and strategies that will help countries to manage these risks effectively and also, from a holistic perspective.
Et toutes les aspects et du travail que nous avons pu faire, nous pouvons soutenir le développement des outils, la proposition des projets, les études de faisabilité dans 2 pays
do the same in many other countries. And, from these experiences, we also drafted, the Agriculture and Food Insecurity Risk Management Framework for Action. So this document is really a guideline, where it details how countries and how they can get support to mainstream or to integrate FM into their national policies and strategies. And I think also, Jean-Claude has spoken a lot about, the correlation of risks, with the constraints. So in our projects, we make sure that, we address our projects and the risk assess and the risk management tools also address not only the risk, but also, these systemic bottlenecks, constraints that hinder or even aggravate the impact of these risks, because the distinction between the two is very important. We cannot address risk in isolation. We also need to understand what are those constraints, that impact these risks. So could it be technology? Is it infrastructure, physical, and institutional policies and the likes? So basically, as I close, we look forward to doing more in more countries that other than the ones that have been mentioned, and also, as the AUDA-NEPAD, as the development agency of the African Union, we look forward to increasing our partnerships. So, thank you.
We would like to hear now from Ms. Simwa in terms of we need to hear from the gender's point of view for you to tell us more about the benefits and the need to include women and youth and other vulnerable groups in enhancing agricultural risk management in Africa. Over to you, Madam.
Thank you so much, Vincent, and all participants for your interest and your presence here today. And thank you so much for bringing this topic of gender equality and social inclusion to the discussion. And so first, I'd like to speak a little bit about why, as you said, it's necessary to consider these aspects, and then how PARM responds to it. So as we know, in all contexts, due to social norms and resulting discriminations, women, youth, and other marginalized groups, depending on the context, they have less access to productive assets, including land, finance, markets, information. And these inequalities, they persist in agricultural risk management, where systems are often poorly adapted to their needs. And for instance, land tenure inequality appears in all contexts PARM has been working in so far. Women often have restricted land tenure with smaller and poorer quality lands. And this inequality extends to their access to all resources, increasing their exposure to risk, to agricultural risk. And just one example, one recent one that I have in mind in Burundi, what we're currently working in, only 5.3% of land certificates belong to women, while they have such a significant role in many value chains, including the maize production that we've been looking at. And when there is an agricultural shock, the shocks impact farmers differently based on their gender, their age, and their socioeconomic factors. And one example for this is in Burkina Faso, women are more exposed to drought due to the inferior quality of the land they can access because of their gender. And so if agricultural risk management systems are designed by and for men, then women, youth, and marginalized groups may have less access to these systems, and in a way that does not respond to their needs because they have not participated in their design. And so inclusivity in agricultural risk management means recognizing these differences and addressing them. And one point that I think is important too is beyond discriminating norms and vulnerabilities, it's critical to also focus on the potential of women, youth, and marginalized groups. For instance, women, they often adopt effective risk management strategies from which we can learn from, also traditional knowledge that we can learn from, if we include them in decision-making processes. And the same for youth, with we can have more often innovative or tech-based ideas that can be very beneficial for ARM, agricultural risk management systems. So when these groups are empowered, supported, they can significantly contribute to sustainable agricultural risk management, and involving them in decision-making and risk management processes ensures that their perspectives and needs are considered and leading to more effective agricultural risk management strategies. And this is why PARM's work prioritizes gender and social inclusion. In our risk assessment studies and project design, we look at the gender and social roles across the value chains, the differences in accessing resources, decision-making and political representation, women's unpaid care work that is often a huge burden impacting their exposure to risk, and also the prevalence of gender-based violence. And all these factors, and even more depending on the context, they contribute to higher agricultural risk, influencing, of course, the tools we develop as a response. And so, yes, we develop gender-responsive and socially inclusive frameworks based on our analysis, on our risk assessment. And in Madagascar, for example, capacity building will target women and youth, integrating them into employment opportunities. In another continent, at the other side of the world, in Guatemala, our gender-responsive approach in risk transfer, so climate risk insurance, reached up to 81% of women beneficiaries. And another aspect of our work is the capacity development sessions that we are conducting in all the countries we're working in. And in those, we always ensure that training on gender and social inclusion in agricultural risk management is conducted, and then women and feminist organizations are present, significantly participate to strengthen their own capacities in agricultural risk management, also financial management and risk transfer. And recently in Burkina Faso, women's farm organizations that have been working with us have developed the institutionalization of agricultural risk management into their practices and are now able to train also other women. And so this is why we advocate for these gender responsive and socially inclusive policies, tools, and insurance products. And we want to engage policymakers through our PharmD platform, through hosting discussions and webinars like this one, and developing partnerships with the organizations working in this area. So please do reach out, connect. I will leave my email address in the chat. And now we all agree that social inclusion and gender equality in agricultural risk management is not only a moral imperative, but a practical necessity. So let's work together this more inclusive and resilient agriculture. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. And thank you, colleagues. So far, we've heard from the partners from the PARM Secretariat as well as the African Union Community. African Union Development Agency. So before we move into the regional economic community, as well as the private sector, we can see that the intervention so far on the agricultural risk management is focusing on support to member states to manage risk in the sector, as well as contribution of Goal 5 of Agenda 2063 on modern agriculture in terms of risk management, coming out with coping strategies and building resilience among the farming community. Also, policy engagements and policy formulation has been key part of the intervention in the sector. And we just have from Madam Simon that inclusivity translates to better policies and implementation in the agricultural management, risk management space. Having said that, let's now move on to the regional economic community, where they're also working with member states and partners in the sector. Calling now upon Madam Providence. The question is, we know that agriculture has been affected by so many risk factors recently, as I alluded to during my introductory section of this meeting. So could you briefly elaborate on your region's experiences and the current priority risk? And then what are the opportunities for collaboration with other regional economic communities and partners to ensure that this problem is effectively addressed going forward? Over to you, Madam Providence.
Thank you, Vincent, for giving me the floor to share also some of our experience in dealing with agricultural risk management. To start with the first question, our region, COMESA, which starts from Tunisia all the way to Eswatini, have been facing a number of several risks, including climate change, pest and disease, political risk, financial risk, market access, and financial constraints, which have really affected the agriculture productivity. For example, for climate change, with the erratic weather as well, frequent droughts and floods in the region, it have really disrupted the agricultural activity and have also led to soil degradation, as well reduce water availability. Currently, the southern part of our region, where we are based in Zambia, Zimbabwe, we're also having issues to do with lack of electricity, which affect not only agriculture, but also other economic activities such as the industry. So what we have been doing as COMESA, as in line with this, we have developed programs such as our Climate Smart Agriculture Program. We have also put in place a system to help farmers access inputs at affordable price, because price volatility affects mostly inputs, seeds, and fertilizer, as well as fuel. As you are already aware, most of the continent, we are importing the seed, the fertilizer, as well as the fuel outside the continent. On pest and disease, we have an early warning system that is in place. We are able to communicate to member states to inform them of outbreaks and also give them guidance on how to control them. On market access, we have 2 programs that we have put in place to help small farmer holder access markets through what we call a regional competitiveness and access program. On political risk, we have 21 countries, but only 5 countries, Kenya, Uganda, Zambia, Ethiopia, and Rwanda, have national policy and strategy that address the risking agriculture sector. So we are working on a regional program on how to de-risk the agriculture sector so that we can guide other members. With regard to opportunity, what can we do together? Between REX with AUDA-NEPAD or other stakeholders such as PARM. One is on knowledge and sharing and best practices. As you heard from a previous speaker, Johan, like PARM have a platform, FARMD, that we can use to share the best practices and the experience from different member states so that they can help build the knowledge of others. 2, we can collaborate together on policy development and harmonization, especially in developing national policy and regulation on de-risking agriculture investment. 3rd, we can also work together to operationalize the policies or regulations that are put in place. 4th, we can work together to have a joint capacity building program that enhance technical skills of stakeholders involved in agriculture risk management. 5th, we can work together on developing regional risk financing mechanisms, such as a pool of insurance scheme and emergency response fund that can help our farmer organization or farmers get access to finance they need, also create a financial safety net for farmers. And last not least, we can collaborate on research and development. Joint investment in research and development can lead to the development of innovative solutions to address the different agriculture risks that have been highlighted. I stop for here, may come back again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Providence. We also know that whatever we do in support of member states and improving the life of people in the continent is not a one-man show. It's a multi-sectoral approach in the sense that it takes the efforts of both the private and the public sector to achieve our development goals and objectives. And so here today with us, as I have already introduced, is Mr. Lugu Zuri. Mr. Zuri, we would like you to tell us some recommendations that you feel that are necessary to improve a partnership between the private sector and also the public sector, so that investment in agriculture risk management can be boosted. And the second question is that, based on your experience, what is required from all these various actors and key players in the sectors? What do you think is required for this collaboration to be seamless? Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Zuri.
All right, thank you, Vincent. So understanding agriculture makes it clear that it's a sector that needs every sectors coming together to be able to get the end result that we want. And then other.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. So the private sector, the public sector, and then all other sectors are supposed to come together to be able to get this investment accelerated. First of all, an enabling environment has to be created by the government to make it seamless for individuals to be able to invest in the sector. Policy framework has to be in its right proportion so that at least we'll be able to get the best out of it. We all know that government is the big spender in infrastructure, roads, storage facilities, irrigations. These things are supposed to be set in order to reduce post-harvest losses. And one other thing that Africans are always battling with is price standardization. Government needs to come. You do know.
Aduaim, there's some connectivity issue. I cannot hear you anymore.
Yes, I'm having some network challenges, but I believe you can hear me. Okay, so what I was saying is that we need an enabling environment. Government needs to be able to put in infrastructure, such cases of irrigation, storage facilities, to be able to get people who are invested into agriculture have the necessary facilities they need to be able to store their grains and reduce post-harvest losses. Our financial services need to be able to open up their space to accommodate farmers, because farming is expensive, the risk level in farming is high, we are unable to control so many adverse reactions that come up, looking at climate change, for instance. So if they're able to have some form of access to credit. There was this farm I visited some time ago in the greater region of Accra. It's by the sea, so you have farmers who are planting tomato, onion, and all that. And because of tidal waves
A farmer who was supposed to harvest in 2 days had his whole farm flooded. And he took a loan facility to be able to do that. But at the end of the day, he's not able to recoup his investment, and that puts him in a lot of trouble. I hope you get it. So if these financial services are able to make credit facilities available, it would work. Also, agri insurance, we cannot stress much on it because it's a way to be able to cushion these farmers to be able to at least make some return on their investments and also because food is the foundation of life. And if we don't have access to be able to make this possible, it makes it very challenging. Also, data information systems need to be strengthened. We do not have very good weather readers. We don't know whether it's going to be drought all year round or it's going to be raining all year round. All these data and in its accuracy would also help farmers make, or not just farmers, anyone who's interested in the agricultural sector be able to come up with ideas and then go into it. Also, technological adaptation is key because we need to be adaptive in our mindset on how best we can make agriculture go. So precision farming, one of the panelists mentioned climate smart agriculture, mechanization, all these things come together to be able to make it profitable, to make the industry lucrative and attractive to people who want to go into it. Research and development is also key, and this research and development helps to tailor the needs to meet every farmer's needs. Because what would work in Kenya is not what's going to work in Ghana. What will work in Nigeria is not going to work in Ghana. So if these individuals have, these individual countries are able to have research and development sections, I think it will be a good way to go. Also, private sectors should be able to come up with these outgrower systems where they give inputs to farmers. They give inputs to farmers, and then at the end of the day, they have some kind of shared system, and that would at least prevent farmers from losing their crops. To quickly come into the what's the name? Development partners, governments are supposed to make sure that education training is out there. Investment is supposed to be out there. Grants are supposed to be out there to be able to give people who are interested the opportunity to delve into it and find out the challenges and solve them. Also, smallholder farmers need to come together as a cooperative. As a cooperative, to be able to make sure that their needs that is voiced out are met. Because as a cooperative, they'll be able to do it. Channel out their challenges, and the government will listen to them. Also, retailers, consumers, everyone plays a role in making sure that at the end of the day, agric or agriculture and its value chain has the accelerated investment so that food security and nutrition would be a problem of the past. So these are some of the things that I would like to highlight on in terms of my recommendations and what all these sectors are supposed to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luguzuri. Colleagues will have the next 15 minutes. Before I come back to the panel members for their concluding remarks, we're going to open the floor for the participants to come in because we're trying to make this an interactive section. If you have questions around what is going on in the continent in terms of agricultural risk management, how do you see PARM and the AUDA-NEPAD playing more roles in terms of supporting the member states or supporting your activities in the continent? We've heard from the regional economic community with emphasis on the fact that collaboration and scaling up has to include knowledge sharing, capacity building, and regional risk financing mechanism has to be put in place. Also, from the private sector, we had that to minimize post-harvest loss, we require storage facilities. And also, there's need for data in the continent to inform decision-making and the rest. So let's now open the floor for some questions before we run out of time.
Vincent, there were some questions added to the chat. I saw one directed to Joanna. And participants, if it's better for you, please do add your question directly to the chat. So maybe for time constraints, it's easier to cover all questions. And the question directed to Joanna was from Boris, and he asked, what model do you propose to reduce the risk of access to agricultural credit for marginalized people, women, people living with disabilities, indigenous peoples in conflict-ridden regions such as East Africa? If you have some element of response.
Thank you, Anaïs. And je vais passer au français comme la question a été posée en français. Je vais m'adapter à la personne qui m'a posé la question. Alors, ce n'est pas quelque chose que PARM a spécifiquement fait, donc de travailler dans une zone de conflit en Afrique de l'Est. Donc voilà, c'est des éléments de réponse que je vais proposer, des idées, mais voilà, ce n'est pas basé sur une expérience spécifique, donc c'est forcément à re-questionner. Mais ce qui me vient à l'esprit, ce serait de... Alors attendez, je dois confirmer ma langue. Hop, française. Ce sera peut-être plus simple pour les interprètes. Pardon. OK. Mais de travailler en partenariat avec des institutions financières qui ont cette approche de l'inclusivité. Donc, je pense à des organismes de microfinance, des banques communautaires qui comprennent les dynamiques locales et qui sont plus aptes à prendre des risques calculés, c'est-à-dire calculés, donc basés sur leur connaissance du contexte local. Et ça permet de pouvoir offrir des microcrédits adaptés aux besoins des personnes en situation de marginalisation. Également, créer des formes de fonds de garantie, tout ça en partenariat avec des ONG, des agences de développement, même des gouvernements qui puissent couvrir une partie des pertes potentielles. Donc toujours cette idée de travailler en synergie, en partenariat avec une fine connaissance du contexte local. Et je dirais aussi d'accompagner tout ça d'une formation et de renforcement des capacités, notamment en termes d'éducation financière, de formation entrepreneuriale, donc, et tout cela adapté au public, donc aux femmes, aux personnes vivant avec un handicap, voilà, à toutes ces personnes-là qui ont une forme de marginalisation ou de vulnérabilité spécifique pour les accompagner dans leur acquisition de compétences financières et de gestion des risques. Ça peut même être sous forme de mentorat pour accompagner ces emprunteurs et emprunteuses dans la gestion de leurs projets. Par rapport au conflit spécifiquement, je pense à l'intégration des technologies numériques, donc tout ce qui est banque mobile, etc. Donc pour fournir des services bancaires accessibles et notamment dans des régions qui puissent être éloignées, conflictuelles et assurer cette connectivité, même des applications accessibles hors ligne, voilà, des systèmes de paiement et de transactions électroniques sécurisées et traçables, transparentes. Et dans tout cela, toujours avoir une approche participative et de sensibilisation, donc en impliquant les communautés dont il s'agit, enfin les communautés visées, pour que en fait la conception de ces mécanismes vienne de leurs propositions, vienne de leurs besoins et que donc ce soit adapté à leurs besoins. Bon, voilà très très rapidement ce qui me vient. N'hésitez pas à rentrer en contact si vous voulez qu'on en discute plus en profondeur et je laisse les autres questions pour mes collègues. Merci.
Thank you very much, Joanna. I saw another question. Vincent, there was one from Mohammed. I think all of you already mentioned what are some of the actions that you do in terms of climate change risk and their impact on the African continent. But maybe if you could maybe provide one specific example of a success story of action that either PARM, AUDA-NEPAD, COMESA, or Wazuri Ghana Limited did to face climate change risks. The floor is yours. Anyone who wants to mention about one key action which was done by your organization for climate change, can please go ahead.
30 seconds for each. To anyone who wants to come in.
Can I go first and really try within the 30 seconds? So basically, I think the question, if I understood it correctly, it was also speaking in terms of an institutional perspective and focusing more on the climate risk. So definitely under AUDA-NEPAD, we have a lot of flagship programs and projects internally, which from the past and even now addressed climate risk. But the value addition of agriculture and food insecurity risk management is that it doesn't only focus on climate risk, but so many other risks, that are coming up and are becoming more prevalent and more frequent that we have seen. So I think there's been quite a few, some success stories. As I said, we have done some feasibility studies in one of the countries. We had done a project on, the project that the name was reducing post-harvest losses. So this was in Niger, and also in Uganda, a project proposal and feasibility study was completed, around structured trading systems, which also addresses one of the issues that I think were mentioned just now on access to finance. But in closing, the most important thing that I think we need, to do collectively as partners to make sure that we can really, show these successful results is better coordination, better partnerships. Really, this will help us to mobilize resources and also prioritize the resources and ensure that there's implementation on the ground. That's my 30 seconds worth of information, but we're happy to continue this discussion offline. Thank you.
Any other panel member want to respond on this success story?
Yeah.
Okay. What I want to add up is that with me business, where we go around to train people to understand the effect of climate change on what they are doing on their farm, but all activities are surrounding it. So including their mechanization, including running their farmhouse and all those come together to be able to give them the sense of why they need to be able to be efficient in climate adversities. Yeah, so that's what I want to end up.
Okay, Jean-Claude, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, yes, yeah, thank you very much, Vincent. So actually, knowing your risk, identifying them, quantifying them is a part of managing the risk. And the PARM has been doing that for the last, I think, decades. So we with our methodology, the holistic methodology that I referred to when I was sharing my thoughts. So we generate the evidence by emphasizing the economic impact of the risk that is amplified by the climate change. Climate change is there, is with us. So how quantitatively the climate change is amplifying the agricultural risk that has the potential to affect the agriculture sector, the production risk, the market risk, the financial risk, the institutional. political risk, the microeconomic risk. So is what we do now at PARM, as one of the we are doing, is to generate those quantitatively, those evidence, how, for example, when a drought will occur, what will be, the economic impact on the public finance of the government. So we have been doing that, and we will continue doing that as a part of the PARM mandate. Over to you, Vincent.
Thank you, Madam Providence. I can see your hands up.
Yes, thank you. Quickly, I wanted to share some of our success under our Climate Smart Agriculture Program. For example, in Eswatini, in our intervention, we're able to train and organize more AUDA farmers and link them to lucrative market in South Africa, where they will also introduce them to water efficient drip irrigations. And in Madagascar, our approach was on combating deforestation, where we're working with the locals to plant trees, to integrate soil fertility management using livestock. In Seychelles, we also introduced what we call a water smart farming approach, where we work to preserve catchment area, promote water harvesting and drip irrigation, and so on. These are the information that we can share with the participants on how some of the initiatives that we started in Uganda through our Climate Smart Agriculture Program. We trained farmers cooperative on water harvesting and also on drip irrigation technology that helped them to increase their productivity, and they were able to get market in nearby schools and government institutions such as prison, where they are delivering fruits and vegetables. So there is a lot we can share, but what is needed is really for everyone to look, where can I contribute? We cannot be in everything, but wherever you can contribute, look at the people who already working in that same area and reach out to them and see how you can build partnership in implementing agriculture risk management program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. We've run out of time. Before I hand over to Jean-Claude for closing remarks, I would like to announce that this is the first series of our webinar. We're planning the second webinar by September. And in between and after that time, AUDA-NEPAD is organizing, in conjunction with the African Union Commission, a validation workshop on the post-Malabo strategy, which will culminate into another bigger conference on the next 10 years implementation plan for agriculture in the continent. So let me hand over to Jean-Claude to give us a closing remark.
Thank you, Vincent. So, dear participants, so the African Union Development Agency, NEPAD, and the PARM, so express their sincere appreciation to all the participants who join us today for this insightful webinar on accelerating investments for inclusive and holistic agriculture risk management in Africa. So today, discussions have emphasized the critical needs for effective agriculture risk management strategy to help empower farmers, community, decision makers to build a more resilient and inclusive present in the future. So as we reflect on the shared experience and the best practice presented, so it is clear that a commitment to working together to implement practical solutions, identify area of synergy and mobilize resources to include agriculture risk management is a very critical. So thank you once again for your active participation. To the panel, thank you very much for your engagement of each one and the valuable contribution that have been provided with a deep understanding of the challenge and opportunity within the agriculture sector in Africa. Thank you very much for sharing those. So we look forward to see you at our next AUDA-NEPAD PARM joint webinar, and have a happy summer break.